Hey, sports fans, welcome on in. It's the Down and Dirty Scott Mitchell, Herman Moore. So glad you could join our show today. Oh, it's going to be a good one. We're going to light it up, and we're happy to be here. We hope you are as well. Please subscribe, do all that fun stuff, all the way from Detroit, Michigan, none other than Herman Moore. Welcome into the program, Herman. How you doing today?
Hey, Scott, you know what? I'm always here. I never leave.
You don't, do you?
I
Yeah,
never leave, brother. I'm
yeah,
always going to be here. I'm like you go in your closet, I come out wearing your clothes. So there
yeah.
you go.
And you're welcome to my clothes. I promise you, they probably fit. Yeah, my clothes would be baggy on you. Your clothes would be like amazingly tight on me. I wouldn't look the same in your clothes. Actually, I don't know. We should try that sometime.
Scott,
We'll
you
do
ever had a pair of Gators? You ever worn Gators? Like when you
Gator.
were here in Detroit? Yeah, it's like just a shoe fashion that's here in Detroit. It may be in other parts of the country,
Is it going
but
on
I
right now?
remember when I came here, I had every cut. I mean, come on, you were part of the group that was on the bus. And for everyone who knows, they see all the fashion that happens nowadays. It's totally different than the fashion than when we came through. We looked like a bunch of Easter eggs in the back because everybody had like guy had on canary yellow. You
Right.
had
Yeah.
people that were wearing like fuchsia, teal, all
Yeah.
teal,
Yeah.
not broken up, like all
Yeah.
teal. It was amazing, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I could see you, man, here. I don't remember you being one of those flashy guys. You were just more or less, so you didn't have the olive color gators, the purple, the pink, the green. You didn't have any of those, right?
I had a blue suit that was, and you say, "Oh, it's blue," but no, this was a different blue, and to me, I felt, "Man, I'm really out there with this suit," and it was also the material that it was made out of, it was shiny, shimmery. You might say, "He could be in the mafia with this suit." It was that kind of thing. Everything was double-breasted. I had a lot of
Oh yeah.
double-breasted suits at the time, yeah.
Yeah.
Super long overcoat, cashmere overcoat is nice, actually.
And dude, I ended up getting all leather. I ended up getting four leather, all leather outfits that were
Yeah,
suits. Remember, everybody was that was the kick, right? I had black, I had chocolate, buttercream,
yeah,
and gunmetal. I actually ended up wearing the gunmetal. Went to LA to go to the Soul Train Music Awards. And I really thought I was gonna just stand out.
just wow
And
'em.
I was probably the most conservative dresser in the entire place.
Yeah. The fashion's the thing in the NFL these days. You look at Joe Burrow and some of these players, boy, they get after it. They go to Fashion Week in Paris. I think that's something we should do. We should end up going to Fashion Week just to get up with the times, get up with all of the looks and the styles of the day. Have you ever been to Paris, by the way? You ever been to
I
Paris?
haven't, but it was interesting when you were saying that. I'm like, you know what? If we could get a sponsor to outfit us so that we can go and just say, what would be the old school OG fashion that we would wear? Because you look at the young kids, what they're wearing nowadays. Now, some, I will say this, some of them get it right
Yeah,
and they're put together. It's not over the top. It's not over the door. And even those that step outside, they're, what I would think would be something that I think is cool. It's okay because you can see when they own it, right? They
yeah,
own that fashion. Then you get some that are just trying way too hard, man. It looks like they just
yeah.
gra- they had just dysfunction going on in that whole room trying to put that together.
Bridge too far on that outfit for sure. When I was going through my reality TV stuff and people were talking about what is the one thing you look most forward to when you lose all the weight? And for me, it was about all the great clothes I can wear. That was the most important thing. And I'm not really a
Interesting.
fashion guy, but it's, man, I just want to feel my clothes fit on my body in just such a nice way. And it was, maybe I'm more vain than I realized, but the one thing that mattered to me the most was actually fashion. In fact, I have a
Let me
question
ask you
for
this.
you.
So
Well,
I'm gonna ask you this real question while you're on your
ask me
fashion.
a question. I'm
Just
gonna ask
let
you
me
a question
just
back.
please tell me, just please tell me, dude, you didn't walk around in like speedos, right? You didn't go international. Speedos with the chain on the beach.
When I was on the shoot on this, oh, you mean
No, I'm
after?
just saying, once you got the weight down and you were like, you could fit in all these different clothes, that you all of a sudden start. You always see people when they get that body transformation,
Right.
they go from one
Yeah.
extreme to another, right? And you'll see them, they go, whether it's a guy, whether it's men, whether it's women, whether it's other, whether it doesn't matter. It's like it becomes a totally different polar opposite 180
Yeah.
flip on what their typical fashion typically was.
So, yes, to a degree, I did.
No, yes on the
Not
speedos,
the
or
change
yes you
no,
went
not
to
the
the
change in the
chain.
Speedo, but
Okay.
I would have been comfortable doing that. Like, I would have been like,
No,
"Man,
dude,
I'll go
don't
for that."
do it.
I didn't do it, and because I don't think it's a good look. But, yeah, there was when I was on the show, I actually was like, "Oh, man," I started walking around without a shirt on, And what I realized is, for me, I thought I was thin, but in reality, I still wasn't. I felt like it, and I was just walking all it's a weird thing because you get so casual about because you're around these people all the time, and you forget that, yeah, you shouldn't take your shirt off. You should keep it on. But I was feeling confident, and so I was owning it. Yeah, it's definitely a weird thing. All right, let's get into the topic. I forgot what my question was for you. It'll come back in my brain in a minute. Anyways, speaking of NFL players and fashion, the Lions, we're going to talk a little bit about the Detroit Lions right now. And it's a very interesting time for the Lions in Campbell's tenure. This is a team a lot of people, including myself, really thought was going to go to and win a Super Bowl. And I don't know about you, Herman, but it's like my heart bleeds for the Detroit Lions. It does. Look, I was mad for a while. I was mad, probably rightly. I don't want to get into it, but I just cheer for the Lions. Like, they're my team, and I did because I want them to go to a Super Bowl. I want to win. The only reason I want the Detroit Lions to win a Super Bowl is because I just want to see how insane the Detroit Lions community gets. I don't want to say they're going to be destructive, but I just want to see the celebration. I think it'll be epic. And so my reason is I feel sorry for them, but it's also I want to see the celebration. Right now, the Lions are in a very critical time. Dan Campbell and the team looked like they were on their way, certainly digressed last season. And this year is really one that's very critical moving forward. It's community support, it's fan support, maybe it's ownership support. This team had injuries, didn't play up to what they were, had some changes, and yet they're excited about what happened with the draft. Where's your kind of temperature on the Lions and where they are and how critical this season actually is?
To your point, there's a lot of fandom when it comes to this organization, when it comes to this team. And a lot of it is, yes, it's chasing that crown, it's chasing the championship, but it's also them looking at all the different players and the opportunities that have been here to have a more celebrated organization in terms of championships and having the opportunity to say, at least we've gone to the Super Bowl as a step one versus we're always on the cusp. We get to that critical conference championship game a couple times since the early 90s. And for some reason, they're right there on the cusp of taking it to that next level of being part of the elite teams of the NFL. And then there's something that happens that gets disrupted. It could be a move that's made by the organization in terms of releasing a player or bringing in a player. It could be there's some success that happens with players. And instead of figuring out a way to keep that chemistry together and then continue to add on to it, they're willing to let certain players go and then try and replace. Anyone who knows how the NFL works, when you replace players, you don't, every year is already, you could bring, bless you, you can bring the same players back year after year that were successful the previous season. It still doesn't guarantee that other teams will stay stagnant and or not get improved. And therefore, you're already going to be in a difficult situation, even if you bring back a loaded team, a successful team, a bonded team, a team that has chemistry, because you have to get over the injury. You have to make sure all the plays are there. The ball has to bounce the right way. It still has to fall the right way. There were games that you probably won that you should have lost. And there's games you lost, you probably should have won. So you have to come back and do it all over again. And I agree that the city, the state, even the surrounding neighboring states where we have Lion fans, whether it be in the upper parts of Indiana over to the upper parts of Ohio that touch the state. These are people that are wanting to see this organization win, but it is going to be a challenge. And you look at the fanfare that's been around Coach Campbell and around Brad Holmes and around Jared Goff and the young talent and Jahmyr Gibbs and St. Brown and Jameson Williams. And you can go on and on. Jack Campbell. They have put the pieces in place. They brought in the players. Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph. You lost Anzalone, but you're bringing in other players to try and replace that player in your draft this year. They're doing all the right things, but man, every year you have to figure out a way to finish.
And what's
You know what I
hard,
mean? That's what we always talk about,
totally,
finishing,
no,
right?
no, it 100%. But what's hard about it The fans go, man, I don't want to hear about I don't want to hear about injuries. I don't want to hear about, hey, this player went on. I don't want to hear about whatever. Someone got a hangnail. We got a new coordinator, whoever, whatever the reason is. At this point, the fans just go, I don't care. I don't care about all that. I don't care. And we're sitting here saying, because we've been there, we're like, no, it's really hard to win. It's really hard to win when you have all the pieces in place
Right.
because it could be your schedule's different than it was a year ago and you're playing different teams. It could be
Different matchups.
right. And in our era, San Francisco 49ers, they play in a weak division, right? NFC West, you're talking Cardinals, you're talking the Rams, you're talking New Orleans, and those teams just weren't competitive back then. And so they had an easy division schedule. And you think of our era where there were 2 years in my time with the Lions where 4 teams from our division made the playoffs. Green Bay was good. Minnesota was good. Chicago decided to be good from time to time. And then Tampa Bay all of a sudden started to be good. And then there was us. And that's a tough division back in the 90s to deal with. And even the division you're in, and that can change from year to year. And injuries play a part of it. And I think, that, and again, people don't want to hear this, but it's the reality of a situation. And the question is the organization seeing and reading this the right way in the moves they make? And where a lot of times the concern is you're getting rid of players, you're changing the structure of the team when, patience and keeping everything together and just look, if we can keep the core of this team together, we can work through the odds of all those variables of schedule change, of injury, of all this stuff. Whereas the organization sometimes just gets reactionary and they go, man, get rid of this guy, get rid of this guy, and we're going to do this and blow everything up. And I think if you're going to play well in the NFL as an organization, I really think it's about patience. And it's
Yeah.
about not letting the fans dictate the terms. It's not letting outside forces. It's like we have because the Lions have made just some brilliant moves in the last few years. And stick with those moves. Let those players develop because that's a whole other side of this. Players get better and they get better when they're in a system longer and they get better when they play with each other longer. They get that chemistry and that continuity and you're always messing with that. It's a hard thing. You have some of these guys that have been in 5 different systems in their first 5 years in the NFL and you're just like, man, that's hard. That's hard to really be consistently good. And to me, that's one of the biggest keys for this year with the Lions, and I do believe it's a pivotal year, but I also believe it's not a panic year. Be patient. Where's the ceiling of Jared Goff? Is my question. Is this guy who's been to the Super Bowl? Is he really a guy that can get you to the Super Bowl? I love that the Lions fans actually started cheering for Jared because that was not a typical thing about being quarterback for the Lions. So it's good to see. But where's his ceiling? And even your coach, Dan Campbell, coaches have to mature as well. And they mature by decisions they make. Hey, the offense is not going, and he took over responsibility for that. Who do you hire there? And I think you learn as you go along as a coach the type of person you want to hire and decisions you make. You get more game savvy about making a lot of those decisions under pressure. And that's the growth of a coach kind of thing that goes on. So there's a lot of factors that go into this. And but it is definitely one of those years that's going to be critical for the Lions.
Right. So when you were mentioning, you're just saying a few things there. It dawned on me. It used to be a time when you look at a team and understanding exactly where the leadership was, whether it be with the head coach, and the head coach is truly the guy that's overseeing all the coaches and so on and so forth. Your coordinators, they were the next tier down and they were the ones running the positions and those things. And then when you got down to the locker room, there was really definitive people. You say, those are the people that if there's a question about this team, the pulse of the team, they're the leaders, whether it be the offensive side, the defensive side, even when you start to look at players within units. When I see a lot of the teams now, and I don't know if it's because the careers are shorter or because the players are leaving their careers and they're not playing 10, 15, 20-year careers, and that's just not the norm anymore because of whatever reason, whether it be because of money, whether it be because players are losing interest, maybe they're preserving themselves, whatever the case may be. But I look at the locker room component. It's gone back to where it seems like the coaches are having to answer a lot of the questions, and we don't see it necessarily being from this root of players that are the ones that you go to. We had guys where they call locker room lawyers, whether they were the leaders, they represented a certain dynamic of a different side of the ball. But I'm wondering if that has led to it not being able to stay together as much. And the reason why I say that is because those are influential people. When it's time to get rid of players, or you start tearing up units, typically those players will get in and have a little bit of a voice and be able to say, listen, I don't think we should break this up. We shouldn't implode this. We shouldn't start to mess with this right now. And I don't know how much of that really takes place anymore. And if it's even got a place for it in the NFL right now, because I start looking back again at this age I'm at now and I go, are they really capable of really weighing in on decisions? Because there's a business side to it, there's a team side to it, there's a leadership and an ownership side of it. So there's all these factors that go into play. So when people are weighing in, can you get too many cooks in the kitchen when it comes to that? And who's ultimately the one that's holding the accountability for all these moves that are made? Because someone's head's going to be on the chopping block, right?
Yeah.
If
I,
it don't
yeah.
work out. And that right now, you even say that because as great as we hear about Dan Campbell, and this is a man who is loved here. When I say loved, I haven't seen a coach for the Detroit Lions that has had the fanfare that Dan Campbell has had.
Would you
And
want to
yet,
play for him?
I think I would like to play for him
I would
because,
love to play for him.
but here's the deal. But I say that, Scott, because as much as I thought it's different, if you come to as a player, depending on your strength and your confidence as a player, it's weird how it's received by different people
Right.
depending on how
I
they can handle strength, and then also how they can handle the strength coming from certain players. Like
yeah,
some people will look you dead in the eye and go, no, not doing that.
yeah,
Now that could be offensive to me. That's definitive. That doesn't turn me off. That makes me know, okay, I can roll with this person because I know they're going to shoot me straight. But if
yeah.
someone's telling me one thing in the front side and then they go behind it and then they're saying it a little bit differently, even though they said no, they're saying no aggressively to the other person. But to me, it was like, no, maybe let me get back to you. That's not the same,
Right.
you know? No.
Yeah, you talk about this whole idea of chemistry, right? And I look at Seattle from a year ago, and if you're going into last season, you're going, Sam Darnold, I don't know if is he going to play as well as he did in Minnesota, and is he going to play well in the playoffs? And he didn't have a turnover in the playoffs, and he played extremely well, and they won a Super Bowl. But I don't think you had the Seahawks on your bingo card to win a Super Bowl. But when you look at chemistry and you look at how they put everything together, I think your conversation about players and having a voice, whatever, and part of that voice to me is developing that chemistry where so much of this depends on trusting and believing. And so it's a defense going, can our quarterback win a big game for us? And Sam Darnold had to earn that with the team, but he all of a sudden, because he struggled during the season last year a little bit. And then you go from an offensive side, is can these guys stop? Can they stop anybody? And is our coach going to make some bonehead decision? Is the owner going to get too involved and meddle in the affairs of everything? Is our kicker going to kick a field goal when it counts? Can our special teams like be special? And that's part of that chemistry, but it's that trust factor. And I think it's the biggest thing that you need to develop as a coach. And I think that's one of the things that Dan Campbell did such a great job of was by getting people to buy into, look, we know what we're doing, we're going to get there, and on top of it, it's getting the fans to trust you as well. And it's just getting to a point where it could be teetering on something really special has to happen with this team. The organization's excited about the draft. I thought it was a smart move how the Lions drafted this year, and it's certainly, I think it's maybe not the sexiest draft you might have. You're getting like defensive interior linemen and offensive linemen, and those aren't necessarily the sexy picks, but it's what really works. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens, and we'll certainly find out as the season goes on. And of course, you want to pray that everyone's healthy, but I think they drafted to create depth to be able to manage that. So we've got a fun segment. This kind of happens almost every day. Maybe it just depends on how hot things are in the world of sports. We're going to bring to you just the hottest headlines, things that we go, that got my attention today. And that's a significant thing that's going on in the world of sports. And this first one, and you talk about the Detroit Lions, Jameson Williams, of course, filed a lawsuit against the NCAA, the Big Ten, and the SEC about his name, image, and likeness. And that's all the rage in college football. And it's really turned college football on its ear. And I don't even think we've seen the beginning of it. I think this is like some of those unforeseen consequences of NIL. Anyway, Jameson basically said, I never got compensated. I never was in the era of NIL, but you're still using my image and how long I want a piece of the action. I feel like back in the day from when I played, is wait a minute, how much would I have been worth? And is there a way for me to go back? And I think someone's going to challenge this. Who knows how many years back or for whatever reason. Jameson had his reasons. And it's really a precarious position that we're all in if you're a follower or a participant in college athletics. Does Jameson have a point? You know, is he right in this? And where do you see all this stuff going?
I think he's on to something. Whether he's right, I think that case has to still go through its process, and then they hear it out. They will go through their discovery, and each one will have an opportunity to talk about their side, like where their stances may be. Now, I think once you went into the NIL space and the NCAA started to roll into this end of it, there was a bigger business piece, and there was a bigger concern that was going to be here, because it's not just the players you're trying to take care of that are eligible for it at that time, but then it's going to start to trickle back to where are you using the name, image, and likeness of not just your current athletes and student athletes, but what about those that were past, that are part of you using them for recruiting, that you're using them as part of your branding, your image, your sponsorship packages. And we've seen that play out in the professional side of it as well. So going back into it and having a player bring it up, it's done before. They had the multi-billion-dollar settlement earlier. I think it was 2016 to 2024, where they had to get that settlement done. Schools got a certain amount of time to pay it out to the different players that are part of that, or athletes that are part of that. And it ended, and it wouldn't go back but so far. So that, while that's been litigated and those players have lost to go back further for different reasons, I don't think that's the end of it. I don't think we've seen it at the end of it there. And then also, what's going to preclude players and athletes and legendary or legacy players from coming back and saying, remove me from all of your literature, remove me from all of the name, image, and use. And I think it's all going to come. At some point, there's going to have to be a settlement that goes back a certain period of time to capture even those that aren't being affected. So this just becomes more where you bring light on a situation that hasn't been resolved. And like you said, is at its infancy. And I think we're going to see a lot more come out of this because of just how quickly it's moving, but how loose it was put together.
Yeah, and one of the things, not how far it goes, because we don't know. I think I should be compensated back
Well, I
in.
do too.
Yeah. I know that you, as a Virginia Cavalier, like that you're the poster child for everyone that should go, look, if you come to Virginia, this is what you're going to turn out to be, is Herman. So I can totally see how, and I think that's worth, I don't know, $50 maybe. Maybe I don't know.
Man, you're being overly generous, man. I was going to say maybe a couple of Chick-fil-A coupons and I don't know, some free buy one, get one free six pack.
Chick-fil-A's not too bad. Just don't go on Sunday. All right. Here's the other side with all of a sudden you become a litigator, and did Jameson come up with this idea, or was he pursued? Is there like the ambulance chasing lawyer out there going, if you've been injured by the NIL, please contact us. We will not take payment unless we win your case, kind of thing. And if he does that, who did it? I would venture to say that maybe an attorney approached him and said, look, you have a case here, you have a point. But then you have to ask yourself the question, all right, Jameson Williams is now a litigator. He's a guy that's going to sue people. And do you think that has any kind of impact on him now? Because I know I sued the NFL at one point in my career, and I've wondered if that had any impact on my future or some of the things that were or weren't that went on. And I was a named plaintiff in the original lawsuit for free agency in the NFL. They were having a hard time getting players to have a willingness to actually be litigants. And I was just young and dumb enough to go, yeah, I'll do this. And I did. And it did help me out down the road as far as future contracts and things like that I had. But it also puts you in the position of, you're one of those guys. You're one of those guys that we have to watch out for. And we don't know how much we really like you. And if there's any opportunity to boot you, we're going to do it.
I do believe that it harbors ill will, and I think it puts you in a position When you think about it, you're suing someone and then perhaps coming back later and saying, hey, I want to still do business with you. Or I still want to have some type of a relationship with you. I don't know if you can necessarily have that. You can pull that out of it. I will say this: when you deal with entities of power and people of power, you're going to get a couple different types of people. Those that want you to basically kneel and kiss the ring. And if you go against it, then they want to destroy you. It doesn't matter about the money. It doesn't matter about the cost. It's about the conquering. And then there are those who will say, listen, I respect you for your challenge. I can appreciate that. And then they're willing to take it up and look at it. And it ultimately, it'll come out to be what it is, but they don't harbor anything. And I've seen both sides of it, but I've seen it more on the other side than not. And that is when you have people who are influential, people of power, people who have the pulse and the button of and the ability to go, no go, it can become abusive, and it could become a commanding and controlling tool that keeps people at bay and allows them to not do the things that they should pursue for their best interest. So it creates an imbalance. It creates a disingenuous relationship. It creates one to where it's never going to be mutually beneficial because it's not a mutually beneficial relationship. It's one where somebody has to have power and someone has to win and someone has to lose. And anytime there's money involved with it, or it's going to pull it from someone's pocket. Think about it. When you look at the game and you look at the evolution of why certain rules get into play or ticket prices increase and it's passed along, it's not passed along to the team's going to pass that to the fans. They're going to pass it to the vendors. They're going to pass it to the people who need to pay them because they are the show. They're the ones who are in control. And you have the ability to do that. That's okay. So with this whole NCAA and the NIL piece, I will say this. I don't think he brought that up on his own. I think that was someone, whether it being, hey, we need to bring you in and be a part of this because we have another group of people that are going to do it. They did all that together. It's just no, you know what I mean? Players aren't sitting around going, you know what? I really think I want to go through this legal process. And here's the reason why. And they undercover and they go read all the rules. They read all the previous case and case law and see what is really giving them the case to be able to do that. And what's the probability of them being able to actually be successful? That's not coming up by a player.
When you just said that, it reminded me of my own agent. And here I'm retired for a long time from the NFL. And one of my former teammates goes on ESPN and says, hey, I didn't block my guy so my quarterback could get hurt. Of course, that was Lomas. And my agent called me immediately. And we're suing ESPN. We're suing them all. This is I don't know what the term he used, defamation of character or whatever. You're a private citizen. This is just wrong. And then he lied about it. It wasn't even actually accurate. And he said, we're going to sue him. And I said, I am not going to do that. I am not going to sue a former teammate. I don't care. It's just I don't want to be in the spotlight. I don't want to be in the spotlight for this. I hate the optics of this. And I just think, man, these lawsuits are now I was willing to sue the NFL, but a whole different thing. But that was something, it's two different things. It was like, I'm fighting for my freedom on one side, and the other one, I'm just like, man, I do not want to get into a lawsuit. Speaking of debates, LeBron James recently with ESPN was in this wide range interview and asked a lot of questions. And one of the questions came up with him, and I loved his answer, but it was a debate about who's better. Is it MJ? Is it LeBron? And he said, look, I just hope Michael's proud of me for doing the number 23. And he said, we're totally different players, total different eras. I don't even think about this question. Is there a debate? Is it worth debating? LeBron talked about it, and do you have an opinion? Do you think one's better over the other, or is LeBron right on this? Or I'm calling BS personally. I think he thinks he's the greatest of all time, and I think we all think we're the greatest of all time. But what say ye about this?
What says I is that is a subjective term, and it's one that is meant to have debate around it. I think it's actually entertaining when we get into using, because it's so great. We look at someone else and say, that's a great play. First of all, let's start with defining what is great. And then let's start with giving a definition of what great means. Great, superb, excellent, outstanding, or pick any of them. And then from there, let's apply it to whatever it is we're talking about. And then just say, is this really the right context and the word to use to even describe this situation? It doesn't have to be a great play, or was it it was a good play. It was a great execution of a play. what makes it great? Is it the athletic ability that we saw that was demonstrated on it? When we look at players and we look at what is it that they did that made that? And I'll give you a case, right? So I remember I used to, when we were playing, and we were always being this debate, who's the greatest receiver?
Right.
And I made the comment, and I was being interviewed by HBO, and they asked me, he said, your coach Wayne Fonte says that other than Jerry Rice, you are the best wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah.
And then it says, do you think you're better than Jerry Rice? I said, absolutely. I said, absolutely.
Yes.
And they said, really? And like eyebrows, everything, like, what? What do you mean? I said, in what context are you talking? I said, if you're talking about catching, I think that's debatable with who has better hands, right? And who has whatever. I said, then it says speed. I think that's debatable. I ran a 4.43. They said he ran a 4.5 or 4.6, plays faster than he, whatever. So that's debatable. Then I said, look at size and physical stature. I said, I think I win that one. I think I'm physically a stronger. Then I said, leaping ability, fade route on the inside. Who's going to be your better player? We can get down to it. I said, but statistically, I said, Jerry Rice's the GOAT. I said, Jerry Rice is hands down the best NFL wide receiver of all time. Non-debatable, objective, full stop.
Yeah.
That's my point. I'm not going to, we're coming down to it. If you're going up over 4 players, who's going to be your better option, me or him? I know I'm going to be, right? And we can debate that all day. So it's great. You got to put it in some type of a category. And I think we need to narrow the focus when we start to determine who's better and not make it this blanket of body of work, because I think you can start to find flaws in everyone. I don't pick any player and you're going to be able to really dial in and say that player really sucked at that thing there. And that's all players have blind spots and weak spots, all of them. I don't care who you are.
No question. Every single one. No question. So this is an interesting conversation, because LeBron said, look, we were different players. And I think that's part of what you're saying with a guy like Jerry Rice. We had different strengths and we were different.
Systems, tools, everything.
Yeah. And so there's just no way to do it. But individually, and if you're in like, this is a down and dirty right here, this question I'm going to ask you.
I'm going to give it to you. Go ahead.
And it's not, because in my mind, like up until, and see, and I'm biased about this because I still think you're the greatest wide receiver the Lions have ever had. And people say, no, Calvin Johnson came along later on. And does it bother you now, like someone came along and maybe people perceive that person to be better? Because I can tell you my time with the Lions, like I set records for the Lions and they were all-time pass. And that may be shocking to people. It's not shocking to me. And in a very short period of time. And I wanted those to stay forever, right? And then along comes Matthew Stafford, and now even Jared Goff, and obliterated everything that I even did. But I wanted those. And I can't say that I'm happy that someone came along. So my question to you is, are you happy, or do you think you're the greatest Lions wide receiver of all time?
I don't think I'm necessarily the greatest. I think I am the greatest at certain categories. No, because here's why. I'm a respectful person when it comes to people. But here's where I draw the line. When you're trying to be erased because you're trying to be erased, not because of your records or anything like that, those speak for themselves. You can't take away accomplishments that you've had, I've had, others have had before us. Those had at Charlie Sanders. I always tell people, I think is the OG. And then before him, there was a receiver or someone who set the records, who really led the path, right? So you pay homage to each of those people along the way, and you don't disrespect them by having to say that necessarily there's something that's better. Records are meant to be broken. Records going to be broken. I'd be surprised if by the time St. Brown, if he stays healthy and give him a few more years, four more solid years, he will be the Lions' all-time leading wide receiver. And that will surpass myself. That will surpass Calvin Johnson. But does that mean he's the best wide receiver that the Lions ever had? No, it doesn't necessarily mean that. It doesn't mean he was the most gifted, the most athletic, the most dominant, it doesn't mean that. It means that he did something right. And he held a standard that's been set by others. But that's the problem I have. So yeah, I get a little perturbed, a little pissed when people try and take what you've accomplished because they have an axe to grind, or they want to make it to where you don't have the significance that you've earned, that you're not even asking to be put in front and center, but you want to own that for your own legacy. And that's where it becomes problematic. And it's being done. Teams will do it because they need the marketability of certain things, but they don't realize what the intelligence is. How do you keep the balance of that without destroying the history and the legacy of the other players who came before these other guys? That shows me an organization of character. That shows me an organization that understands that it doesn't harbor ill will and it doesn't carry grudges because of whatever reason. But you see it happen all the time. They want to erase you, try to erase you. And I don't say that because I feel that necessarily is my case. I'm going to always have my platform and I'm going to stand up for myself. And I will say this last piece. People always say, you know what, you can't toot your own horn. You shouldn't talk about yourself. You shouldn't do that. Listen, there's no different than people trying to talk down or put you in a space and put you in a place you don't belong. If you don't defend and stand up for yourself, then how do you expect other people to do it? If you're going to wait for other people to do it, then you're going to say, listen, I'm not going to be relevant unless you want to keep me relevant. And I'm not going to have my legacy unless you want me to have my legacy. No, I'm going to have my legacy. And even if it's just for me, my friends, my family, and those that supported me and I support it, let it be that. And I'm long on that because that is one of the things that irritates me the most when I see organizations who get it right. And then when I see organizations that are just pure freaking lazy and just don't get it. And that's how you build history with your team. Like right now, if I go and ask most teams, your fan base should be able to reel off your best of the best.
Yeah.
Right. If you're doing a good job.
Yeah. It goes back to that chemistry. And that's part of building that chemistry is leaning into and embracing your history and bringing those guys back and feeling we're all part of this big thing that just gets passed from generation to generation. And you're the guys now that are carrying the torch and it 100%. But when they just try to just deny it, erase it, it goes away. It's just a bad thing. I'll tell you what I just got excited about. I was like, okay, I could put Calvin Johnson over here on one side, Herman Moore on the other side, and put Amon-Ra St. Brown somewhere in the middle. I don't care if he's on the left in the middle, on the right in the middle. Whoo! Would we
Let
have
me
a
ask you
fun
this.
day? We would have a fun day.
You said this down and dirty.
Except everyone would be like, throw me the ball. I'd have to have
no. So here's my take.
I'm gonna throw it to you now, and I'm gonna throw it to you
Bill,
now, and I'm gonna throw it to you now.
QB1. I got one for you. Because you know we were like that in the huddle. But I got one for you, QB1. So there's a big debate. Now, most people aren't debating whether or not you go your X and your Z, whether you go with me or Calvin on the exterior or you go with us as the big receivers. That's usually not that big of a debate, if ever. It's always coming down to that slot guy or that inside guy, St. Brown. So do you, and you've seen him play.
Yeah.
You've played with Johnny and Brett, right? And there's probably other players, Golden Tate, who's been here as well.
Right. Yeah.
How do you differentiate those guys? Because they're similar. He's actually he's a bigger player than you realize. Like he's 6 foot, 100, 200 pounds, probably, St. Brown. So he's similar in that stature and this build of Johnny, probably a little bit bigger than Brett, because Brett was a little bit shorter than 6 foot. But when he and Golden Tate, probably about that. But we know Brett's strong. Brett was tough. He was a beast, right?
Yeah.
And he had multiple weights. Who would you only get to pick one of them, and you get to put them in your offensive set. Now, obviously, you have history and bias, so I'm going to try and ask you to remove the bias.
I don't know that I can, but I'll try.
All right, and remove the statistics. Look at the body of work.
Yeah.
Who do you put in the slot? Or do you just or maybe you take me out and then you're going to go with two smaller guys and then go with Calvin. I don't think anyone's going to remove Calvin for obvious reasons.
No one's going to remove you either. I'm just thinking of, first of all, I'm thinking, man, what would a bunch formation look like with that? Like these two.
I know I would probably have to be on a point.
Yeah. It's just the fact that you're all there, just a big old clump of bodies there. That would be fun. My bias is, I'm just going to tell you what, and this was like, I love to throw the ball to Brett Perriman. Like very underappreciated, very undervalued. And man, I love throwing the football. Like Brett Perriman was money, and Brett Perriman had great hands. And if you put the two of you on the outside and you put Brett Perriman in that slot, that's freaking awesome right there. That might be my choice. And I don't know if it's biased or not, but still it would definitely be my choice. And Johnny was good in the slot. I don't think he loved the slot, though. I don't think that was where he felt the most comfortable.
He was a true X. He wanted to really be X. Yeah, but he didn't want to play in that middle too much.
But boy, Brett, oh man, he would be awesome. That'd be a lot of fun.
Here's the reason why I mentioned that, Scott, because I just really don't. That's my point. People don't remember a guy like Brett Perriman.
Yeah.
And while he may not have the Pro Bowls, he may not jump out at you, he may not have been the guy that was name and lights. Just again, understanding the significance of the talent and just the grit when before grit was even famous and popular here in Detroit. Like these are the type of guys that it becomes an argument that unless you understand the history of what we're debating, it's easy to say what's present because of social. It's easy because you have so much access to information, literature, film, clips, all this other stuff, right? Access. Then trying to find that, even like I told you, 5 years and going, trying to just get my highlight films, right?
Yeah.
that we know they're digitized and they're there. But I only say that because when you get into that great debate and you start talking about LeBron James and Michael Jordan and some of these great players and who's better, if you don't have the whole context, I think you shouldn't even have that debate.
When you're talking
You
about,
should be disqualified. You
right,
should be disqualified in conversation if you don't understand both ends of the spectrum.
you talk about kind of someone getting lost, and you were the marquee name, the high draft pick, you were the Pro Bowler, and rightfully, there's no debate on that. And a guy like Brett goes, "Wait a minute, I'm pretty freaking good," and he was. And I think had we had more time together, I think that would have fleshed itself out because you look at a lot of these really great wide receiver duels through history. And you look at Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne came along later. You look at Lynn Swann, and Lynn Swann probably gets more of the notoriety than John Stallworth, but they played long enough together where, oh, wait a minute, there's a guy over here and he's pretty freaking good. And I think it takes that longevity. And it's almost like people's eyeballs need to be on the one that's front and center long enough to go, oh yeah, look at this other guy right here. He's pretty good. And quite frankly, both of them actually help each other, right? It's where if you just have one guy, if you just have one Herman Moore, and that's it, you can get double teamed. They can make it really hard for you to catch footballs, but you have another counterpoint to that. Man, that's when some real magic can happen, and it did. And it's unfortunate it didn't last longer. Okay, the NCAA has gone Oprah. They have decided to give everyone a chance to go play in the NCAA tournament. You get a spot, you get a spot, you get a spot. Everybody's going to the NCAA tournament now. The NCAA is actually set to move the team of 64 to 76. I'm not a mathematician, Herman. All I want to know, do the brackets balance out? Is it still, or is it odd and weird? What do you think about practically every team in college basketball now gets to go to the basketball tournament?
I think they're trying to just bring it. I don't mind expansion. I don't mind increasing the number of the field as long as it's been thought out. If you show me the benefit, the pros and cons, show me the SWOT analysis on that one. Show me here's why we did it and here's where the improvement's going to happen. Or if we're doing this, here's something we have to be careful of. Because the one thing you don't want to do is open it up and then regret it later and then have to come back and make other alterations and changes, which I get it. When you make those things, there's no guarantee it could potentially happen. However, we always talk about those bubble teams and we look at some of the conferences. I think where the problem has come out of this is you're seeing stronger teams be left out because of the numbers game.
Yeah.
And now they're trying to level it out. And if I had to guess, I'm thinking that they say, listen, how realistically, how many really good teams got left out? If we could have really said, okay, all the teams that deserve to be in the NCAA tournament actually made it, it would have probably came out to be, let's call it 76. And that's how perhaps you get to your number because there's got to be a rationalization and a rhyme and reason behind it. The first thing that comes to mind sometimes to me is like money. Like they just want to make more money. They just want to open it up. There was success. Someone's over there counting the chips, right? Someone's over there counting money and saying, listen,
Make money on this.
every venue, every place we go, that's why we got 100 bowl games now, right? In football, because they go, yeah, they're not all profitable, but there's some sponsorship packages and everybody's going to kind of win and whatever. And I think we'll see what happens. Right now, I'm not opposed or offended by it because I think it goes so fast that it opens it up to a greater pool of talented teams that get left out every year.
I love March Madness. I think it's so great to watch because you always have upsets. Basketball is one of those sports where the underdog has a real chance, and it does happen. Typically, when you get down to the very best teams, they usually find their way through, which you like too, because you want to see the very best teams playing at the end, which I think for the most part you saw this year. But the other thing that I think expanding it does And going back to our NIL conversation, you have all these players changing positions every year, changing schools, and trying to get into a flow. When you're new to a school, it takes some time. So maybe early on in the season, it's gonna be rough, but and you might lose some games, so you might not be ranked as high, and you may be one of those bubble teams, but you're playing really good at the end of the year because you finally found that continuity. Or there's some teams that are good early and they have injuries, and there's just some teams that emerge later in the year that are playing really good, and you go, wow, we'd like to see them in the tournament because you want the best teams that are possibly in there. I think it definitely is a moneymaker. But the downside to me for all this is, what does it do to the regular season? Because it's, if there's so many teams that are getting in, it's, the regular season doesn't mean as much now, and as it maybe did in the past. I don't know that it means as much now anyways. I think everyone just says, yeah, let's just get to March Madness and we'll all tune in to that, because I'm not sure how many people are actually still watching college basketball, especially with the NIL, because it really changed things. Or even these guys going to the pros. Because I'll tell you what, when I was younger, Herman, I loved ACC basketball. I loved watching those great teams, and they had players that a lot of these schools that played for a long time, and now it's certainly changed. But I think overall, I think this is actually a pretty good idea. I don't think it's bad at all.
And when you mention that, I don't think it's going to be too many teams. I don't think it makes it because the season already is long season and all those things. I really believe it's going to reward the teams that are missing it, because it's favoring other teams that kind of play the system a little bit. So yeah, I'm interested to see how it works out. Can't go any deeper than that with it. Hey Scott, you can't see this either, man, but this is going to be cool. See that? So I want people on our show that start chiming in. Not only will you get a down and dirty mug, but you also will get our exclusive sticker set that Scott Mitchell and I will send you, of really iconic stickers that you can start to affix to your mug. So make sure you're chiming in, that you're liking, that you're subscribing, so that you can be a part of the club and you get all this really cool stuff, man. And maybe Scott will bring you some Kona coffee like he brought your boy. So what do you think about that, Bill?
I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, you ready to prove everyone that they're wrong? Yeah, you ready to prove everyone that they're wrong?
All right, I think we got it now.
Got that thing on just loop, huh?
All right, there you have it. Carly Irsay Gordon, of course. Let me ask you, before we get into this, because this is fun. There's a lot to get into here. Did you have a conversation when the team called you? What was that conversation like?
No, my only call, I spoke with Coach Fonts. Wayne Fonts called me. Look at that. Oh man, look, Wayne called me and he said, I was at my mom's house and he was like, we're going to take you with the 10th pick. Congratulations coming to Detroit. And I was like, all right, I appreciate that. Cause he told me he was going to take me when he was at Virginia, but Denver had passed on me at the 4th pick between myself and Mike Kroll, linebacker. I think he was in Nebraska or something like that.
Yeah.
And when they passed, the Lions say, we're taking you. And when it came true, man, I was like, it was surreal. But at the same time, I knew I was going to go in the first round. It was a matter of which team. And I always tell people this, Scott, just so you know, and I don't know if I ever told you this story. So if Denver was going to pick me, I went out and visited with Denver. Coach Reeves said, listen, we need a receiver, but we also need a linebacker on defense. So we're going to take one of the two of you with the 4th pick. And I was really seriously in consideration. I was on the phone with them when the 4th pick was up. And then they hung up on me when they made their pick.
Right.
They didn't even say bye. It was funny. That's a whole nother story. And then when Detroit picked me, if they wouldn't have gotten me and picked me, Dallas was going to pick me instead of Alvin Harper. And if I wouldn't have gone there, I would have actually gone to Pittsburgh with 15.
Okay.
And then if I didn't go to Pittsburgh, I would end up in Miami instead of Randall Hill at 21. I think it was 21st pick or something like that.
Oh, man.
So they ended up getting Jeff Graham at Pittsburgh in the 2nd round, I think. But they ended up getting Huey Richardson or someone like that. The Pittsburgh Steelers did. But I had plenty of teams, because at my pro day, I had 23 or 24 of the teams that came to my pro day at the University of Virginia, just to work me out.
Yeah, and you're rattling off like what great teams. The Broncos have been successful. Miami,
So you may
Pittsburgh.
have seen me earlier, man,
Dallas.
down in Miami.
I know, it's just holy cow. I can only imagine, yeah. So,
Yep. So instead of Randall Hill, man, you would have had me down there.
yeah, and it's funny because he was super fast, and like, the Miami Dolphins, man, they were harsh. Like, like, you come in early and they'd be like, "Yeah, you can either play or you're not." It was a hard place to break through, and Randall just never did. Just there were too many other wide receivers that were so much better that he had a hard time really getting in. And he's a really great player, but boy, he was tough. So everyone said, "Oh, you'll be drafted late first round, no later than the second round." And I knew all the teams that were, so it was the Washington Redskins, it was the Jets, it was the Patriots. These were the teams that were interested. And same thing. I was on the phone with them, and then just went dead. And I'm just like, oh man. So at the time, the draft went on for hours on television. It was a lot faster than it is now. And I think it went off at about the end of the third round. And I hadn't been drafted. So I've been watching this thing all day long. And it was just a miserable, horrible day. And I'd gone back to my apartment, and then the phone rang, and it was Coach Shula. And he's, "Hey, look up on the TV. We're getting ready to draft you." And I'm like, "I think the television went off about an hour ago." And he's, "Oh, anyways, welcome to the team. Here's my secretary. She'll make arrangements. I'll see you next Thursday." And that was it.
Wow.
So it was cool to get that phone call, but for me, it was a disappointing day. Okay, so back to Carly Irsay. Could you imagine you're a player kind of getting this kind of prep? I don't know. Pep talk? Is it like,
The
what is,
internet was unforgiving though, man. All I know when I went in, I looked, and you're expecting. I don't know what I was expecting when I clicked on the clip, and they said this was an interesting take, and got the internet ablaze, and so I played the clip, and I was looking, and we just saw it just then, and I said, I think it was the tone. You know what I mean? It was the voice, it was the delivery of it. And these are guys, man. Like, come on, man. These are young kids, man. These are young men. And then you also are dealing with a predominantly male sport
right?
and fan base and all those things, even though the female fans for the NFL is on the rise. But yeah, so the guys are all sitting there going, huh. And then I look at the comments, and all the ones start going, I guess I got to start following the owner, right? I got to start checking in. This is my my favorite owner now, and all this stuff. So obviously, there was something that was said, and how it was said, that resonates with a certain population of people, predominantly men.
Right.
And yeah,
Man, you ready to
is
prove them wrong? It's like,
but it was in the tone. It wasn't even, hey, are you ready to F and prove them F and wrong? It wasn't like that. It's like, oh, this lower tone. Are you ready? Are you really? Are you ready? So that's my, if I came up and said, like, I went up to someone and said, listen, are you ready? Are you ready for us to go in here and prove people wrong? If I said that to a newly drafted female player, and I said, you probably would look at me. Your parents would probably come looking for me.
so I was shocked by this to start with. I don't
But I
think
didn't see anything bad. I
no,
just
no,
thought it was
no, no. I wasn't shocked in a bad way, not at all. Because there's a side of me that goes, man, I really like this. Like, I like these Irsay girls because they're sitting on the sideline taking notes. I don't know if you've ever watched them on the side. They're in it. Like, they are in it.
How do you know what they're doing? How do you know what they're doing?
Well,
How do you know what they're doing?
well, because
How do you know?
Ford sit on the sidelines and go, "Yeah, that Herman Moore. I don't think I like that route right there." This coach,
No, that's what I'm saying. Hear what I'm saying.
The run on
No,
second.
the question I'm
and
asking
one.
is,
What are you doing that for? It's like,
no, you said they're taking notes, and I was like, what kind of notes are they taking? I'm just asking.
the fact that
You
they're
don't know if
on
they're
the
taking
sideline.
notes.
Look, the fact that they're on the sideline taking notes. What owner does? None of them. The only owner that
Taking what
does it on the
notes?
side is, it's okay if you have to tell this player this, like, she's acknowledging that he is a better player, or she thinks he's a better player. And if he was a better player, why'd you wait so long to draft him? Like, why are you? It almost seems, man, it's like you're messing with me, because not only are you telling me this story,
They draft teasing. She's
but you
draft teasing.
drafted me late.
She draft teasing.
Yeah, it's just wrong. Look, when I first got drafted, there were certain things that shocked me. Smoking at halftime shocked me, and the conversations that went on the sideline.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I was shocked. And I was like, how did they ever win a game here? How do they ever win a game? Like, it was so chaotic, and it was MF and this and everything else. Players screaming at coaches, and coaches screaming at player. And I'm just like, whoa, the intensity of all this was just mind-boggling to me. And so, yeah, there's a certain kind of, I don't know, vibe on a sideline. You think of recently like the Travis Kelce screaming and yelling at Andy. Like, how can you scream at Andy Reid? Like, he's just Andy Reid's like your, it's like your he's that father figure. Like, how can you do that? I don't know. And maybe he knew that he could do that they have that trusting relationship. But I just think that I like the Irsay owners today. And I'm not sure how we call it. What do we call it? It's just awesome. I think they're doing things the way they want to do them. They're doing things, they're going with their gut. It's certainly against the grain of what's considered normal in the NFL. Even this conversation is against the grain, and they don't care. Yeah, I'm gonna say things how I really believe them. And quite frankly, to me, this is about as down and dirty as you get. And I love it. Absolutely love it. So glad you could join us today. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everyone. I'm Scott Mitchell. He's Herman Moore. Thanks, Chrissy. Thanks, Martin. Hey, everyone. We'll see you later. Until then, we'll see you then.